Mychal. I'm a sommelier, tarot reader, and ballet dancer.
I'm Suzanne. I am a writer, an author, and a teacher.
And this is G for ghosts.
Ooh.
All the Woo is a safe space where we are really just sharing our experiences with you in a non-judgmental zone.
So come on in and sit down. We are drinking today. What are we drinking today, Mychal?
So pardon the pun, but we are going to be having a spirit today instead of a wine. We are going to be drinking Ouzo, which is a clear spirit. The flavor is anise, black licorice, and traditional service is that you add in some water that makes it cloudy, like a ghost.
I will not woo again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think we should probably start with what the definition of a ghost is. And according to online Oxford Dictionary, it is an apparition of a dead person which is believed to appear or become manifest to the living, typically as a nebulous image.
And the fascinating thing about ghost, when you're looking at it from a all of human civilization point of view, which is oftentimes how I like to look at things, everybody everywhere has had ghosts. Every culture, every civilization, pretty much every religion, everyone believes that it is possible for, except maybe late 20th century, believes that it is possible for the dead to come visit the living. And in some cases, it's almost expected.
Or invited.
So my experience with ghosts is I grew up overseas, and at one point we lived in an English enclave that was built around a priory, which was a place where both nuns and monks lived. And there was a room that was walled up because a young nun had gotten pregnant by a priest, which was, kind of a no-no.
Yeah.
And had been buried alive for her sins.
Well, that sounds
pretty Catholic.
Yeah.
So at least,
back in the day. Back in the day. Yeah.
And then the monk had been beheaded at the river that ran right by the priory. So before we moved there, they sent us like a
brochure,
PR magazine, maybe. I don't know, but it had a picture of the ghost in it,
like of the living, or a picture of an apparition.
A picture of an apparition that was sort of dressed in a Middle Ages outfit.
That's cool. I wonder who took the picture.
I'm sure it was, all the information was in there. And, and this was, they probably took the picture in the 70s. So pretty involved. And I just remember being utterly fascinated staring at that picture. And then when we lived there, possibly weren't supposed to do this, but I made the priory like my own personal playhouse. So
I did the same thing when I was younger. I spent a lot of time in the parish chapel because my grandmother worked in the parish. So I typically got in trouble for lighting the prayer candles because I thought that was fun.
A lot of people getting extra prayers.
Yes.
Yeah, the place was fascinating. They had one room that had eight sides, but that's a different conversation. Anyway, just the awareness, and then where we lived in England was very well known for its supernatural activity and being kind of a hotbed of, I don't know, the undead.
There's a lot of history and tragedy that's built up there, which seems to be like, the good combo, the recipe for spirits and ghosts. Yeah.
So while I had an experience looking at a picture, as we know from the orientation, Mychal actually took a picture.
Yeah.
But even more so than that, she's had them living in her house.
Multiple times. Yes.
So why don't you share with us your first time?
Okay, so I feel like it's important that I share the story that I've been alluding to for a couple of episodes now. So we'll stick with one of them, although to be clear, I've had many different kind of experiences.
And this is the story that requires a diagram of your house, right?
A little bit. So I'll try to move through this very quickly. This happened at the time when I was in sixth grade, so that would be 12 years old. And not just me and my parents, my family, we lived in a townhouse that was a 2-story townhouse where the 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms on the first floor. The master bedroom was on the second floor. It was like, master suite kind of deal. And up the stairs where the staircase was, there was a wall that was separating the staircase from the living room, but there was a cutout window in that wall that allowed you, if you were in the living room, to see through up to the banister of the second floor.
Great description.
Thank you. Hopefully it's helpful for everybody. Okay, moving on from that.
From the architectural digest of the ghost story.
We have to get very specific here. Okay, so it was an afternoon that I came home from school because I didn't have dance class. It was sunset time, so true afternoon in that way. I was home alone. My brother wasn't there. My family wasn't there. I was watching TV in a chair with one light on next to me, and because it was starting to get dark, as I was watching TV, all of a sudden I heard a door slam upstairs, which freaked me out because I knew that I was home alone. So I looked up towards the upstairs, towards that cutout that I could see to the banister, and I saw a shadow of a man walk across the banister, which for me I thought was a solid person because of the lighting of the time. It seemed like he would have just, would have been backlit and I couldn't see.
So, dear listener, I hope you got chills because I've heard this story a couple times and I still get chills.
Sorry.
That's what a ghost story is supposed to be.
That's true. That is true. So I was there. I was petrified. Because I thought a man had broken into the house. That was my experience. It wasn't like I was sitting there being like, oh, I saw a ghost. No, for me, somebody had broken into the house and I did not know what to do, being home alone. So I was sitting there. I could not move, trying to decide, okay, which in hindsight, none of these things are rational or make sense. But I thought, okay, well, if I move, then I'm going to make sound and I'm going to draw attention to me. And if he doesn't know that I'm here, then, I've blown my cover, which obviously is there. The TV's on. Okay, right. But I was like, but also you have the other option, which is I'm just going to sit here and be quiet then to not draw attention to myself. So those were the two things. I sat there petrified for about 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, I hear the garage door opening, which I knew was my dad coming home. And you had to walk from the garage outside a little bit to get to the front door to get into the house. So as I was doing, I heard that. I immediately got up and scurried, tiptoed over to the front door as my dad was there opening it. And I whispered, I'm like, Dad, there's a man upstairs. To which his eyes just got really big and determined, jaw clenched, and came into the house, went to
defend his territory.
Yes, that's right. He came in, went to the kitchen, grabbed a kitchen knife because that was basically the weapon that we had in the house, and ran upstairs, which I do not recommend running with knives. But he went upstairs with it and checked out while I waited downstairs. And he came back down and he's saw no evidence of anybody being upstairs. So all the doors were open. There was no closed doors, so no doors to be shut. All the windows and anything like that were closed. Nothing had been moved or anything like that. So I just thought I had seen a man. I did not. My instinct was not, oh, I saw a ghost at any point.
Right.
I will say that. It's important to know. So then a couple weeks later, my brother approached me, asking me. He seemed very nervous. He's like, were you upstairs today? Keeping in mind that upstairs is the master bedroom, there's really no reason for me to be up there. So I was like, no. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm really sure. I've not been up there all day today. He's like, okay. I was like, what's going on? He didn't answer me. He walked away. He came back, asked me again. He's like, are you sure you weren't upstairs? I was like, yeah, I already told you. Why would I lie to you about that? So I guess what had happened to him, he had also asked my parents multiple times the same question. He was really freaked out because he was upstairs using the restroom and he had noticed that there was a pocket door. For the first time he noticed this. I don't know. He closed it. The light was on outside, but not in the space where he was. And while he was using the restroom, he noticed a shadow walk across, like what would be walking across the door, but he didn't hear anything of footsteps. It was just this shadow moving across the
And that's
floor.
particularly disconcerting when you are in a position where you can do nothing.
Literally, yes.
Super nothing.
Super nothing. So he was freaked out. He also, his mind didn't go to ghost either. Neither of us that was the case. But my parents were concerned because they're like, okay, within a matter of a couple of weeks, our kids are having experiences that are really scaring them to the point like this is a problem. My mom, where she was working at the time, that there was a woman that she worked with who was a Wiccan, who she was hearing the stories and she was the one who proposed. It sounds like you might have ghosts and that your kids are seeing ghosts. My mom's like, what do we do with that? Like, I don't know how to deal with that. And so the recommendation is that one of their regular customers who was a member was a medium. And she's like, hey, you should talk to so-and-so because he's a medium. If it's ghosts, he'll be able to tell you for sure whether or not it is.
And I'm just going to say kudos to your parents for acknowledging that you really were experiencing something. It wasn't that you were playing a game or that you were faking it or that you were lying or any of the other things that sometimes I think parents just dismiss their children with, but they were like, okay, our kids are legitimately scared and let's pursue this. So
Yeah.
that's pretty remarkable.
Well, and I think it also, not to talk up my brother and I, but I just kind of tell you about who we were as children. Like we were very much, we did not try to blow up anything in that way. We weren't really storytellers in that way. So for us to really be
It was a very different change behavior, yeah.
correct, yeah, very, very different for both of us.
So the medium came to your house.
He did, and he was super nice. It was one of the first things, like he came in and my mom told me, hey, why don't you go get the picture that you took and see what he has to say about it? I'm like,
Dear listener, this was the picture mentioned in the orientation episode.
yes. And so I was like, oh, okay, grabbed it, gave it to him. He didn't even look at it. He literally put it in his hand and put his other hand on top of it. And while he did that, he was saying, he goes, oh, yes, you took a picture of a ghost. He's like, not just one, 4.
Because Michael is an overachiever like that.
If I'm going to do it, I do it good. In all things, including bodily injuries.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, I was like, what do you mean? And that's when he lifted up his hand. He showed me. He's like, there's one there, 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 and there. And so he saw some other things that me, even having this photo for such a long time, didn't even notice. I was like, oh, yeah, which, expanded it. And then he gave it back to me. He's like, this is very special. You were meant to take this. They were there for you to take the picture. And I was like, oh, which also kind of changed. If you remember the episode, I was scared that they were upset with me. So like changed my perspective on what was going on.
Take that, Harry Potter.
Yeah, right? So we went upstairs. We kind of talked about what my brother and I saw. And he confirmed, he's like, yes, it was. And that he was at that moment in contact with my brother and I had seen both the same spirit ghost. And
so that was comforting. Only one ghost.
Only one, yes. He kind of went into who he was, and it was very interesting. So to give a background, my ghost had a job.
He was a Virgo ghost, of course.
Yes. He was like a counselor ghost in that what he was doing, and he explained that why we had seen him. He was actually...
He, the medium, explained why he, the ghost.
Yes, they explained, let's put it that way. The explanation was given, let me rephrase this, that the ghost was, when we saw him on his way passing through to go visit another ghost, who the other ghost that was being visited was having a hard time realizing, accepting his transition.
Ghostliness.
Yes. And so the ghost that I had seen and that my brother had seen, it was his job to be like a counselor and to approach him in a way that he was comfortable with, which was for Civil War wear. So our counselor ghost was wearing Civil War uniform and was approaching him to speak with him so that he could come to the realization of where he was and to be able to move on, that was the purpose. of his job. And so he was super nice, and the ghost explained that he wasn't intending to scare us in any way.
The ghost explained to the medium.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just making sure lines of communication are clear here.
It was explained that it was not his intention to scare us. The ghost didn't realize that we would be able to see him. And so there was this weird moment where the ghost kind of took over the body of the medium.
Like in the movie Ghost?
Sort of, and where he started...
With less kissing?
Yeah, no kissing. There was no physical contact made with anybody, yes. But there was definitely where instead of the medium saying he says, it became me, I. He became the persona and was speaking to us directly. You could tell, like, there was this definite moment where that switch happened, and he made eye contact with me, and he says, "I'm sorry, I did not mean to scare you. I can choose to not, I can avoid this space in the future and tell others to also avoid this space. Unless you give permission or you're comfortable with it, are you comfortable with this?" And he looked at me, and so I said, "Yeah, I'm comfortable," because I then understood. I wasn't scared of it. It seemed...
But still, you were saying it's fine for ghosts to use my hallway as a road between
Yes.
realities?
Yes. But he then looked at my brother. My brother said yes. To my dad, my dad's like, yes. My mom very hesitantly said yes, because this was her bedroom. Keep this in mind.
Yeah. Can you post hours like you're welcome to come through during the day when I'm at work,
Yes.
but not on weekends and not in evenings? And
Right. You can't do business hours kind of thing. But she was definitely, I mean, she felt pressured for sure, because all the rest
that
of
is
us,
an
yes.
interesting form of peer pressure.
Yes. But he was very savvy. He picked up on that, and he had mentioned, he's like, "Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. However, I will try to avoid this space whenever possible, and I will communicate with others to also avoid this space as well."
So did you ever learn what the space in your house was to him, them, it?
It was described that it was like dimensions that lay directly on top of each other, so that their ground level was at a different height. Like there was a hill there in their realm of reality versus where our realm of reality was, which is why we were only seeing them on the second floor. It wasn't happening on the first floor. So it was literally just like an open ground space. It wasn't a building or structure or anything like that. And that was why they were kind of passing through. It was unusual, or apparently it is unusual, for somebody like me or my brother to see.
Now, I will say that historically and culturally, children and animals are credited with being able to see the spirit world far
Yes.
more so than adults.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can see that in all stories.
I think at one point after we knew as well, my dad had mentioned when he was laying down in the living room, because we had vaulted ceilings that went up to the second floor kind of level, that he could see sometimes shadows kind of passing through or kind of go across the ceiling.
Chills again.
Sorry. But yeah, that was definitely something that had happened. But it had opened up a whole new conversation for us as a family of asking, okay, well, how does this work? Because it had never really been described to us before about there being like another level, what their ground level is versus ours being different, that it would be somebody's job to go and like help another ghost to help them pass on. We sat and talked for hours, honestly, about this and about reincarnation. And beyond that, I think the really important part is that it just opened a whole new world, not just for me, but for my family. And that was a very defining point for us, to kind of see it from a whole new perspective.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So we realize now that we have brought up ghosts and fairies living in your house.
Yeah.
And we don't want to
Scare you. Freak you out.
or leave you feeling invaded.
Yeah.
So we will,
Personal space.
in the alphabet, bring you P for protection, and we'll talk about kind of if these are things that you do not want living in your space with you.
How you can deal with that. Yes.
Absolutely.
We're not going to leave you hanging. That's for sure. So join us next time on All the Woo as we cover H.
Her story.
You mean history?
I mean her story. HERSTORY. History through the eyes of women.
I see. Next time on All the Woo.